Hey guys, how's it going? It's Danny Fitzy here, and I'm back here with another overview or a build guide, kind of. Basically, we're going to be talking about the Frost Blades Berserker today, and on screen you're basically seeing just kind of an example of it's clear and it's single target because this is a Citadel run or whatever you want to call it. Basically, obviously there's the conqueror at the end of this map. So obviously I'll let you watch that and you can see the damage on a proper single target, because obviously with this build basically what we're utilizing is obviously the Berserker's Rage and Berserker Gem. Obviously Berserker anyway, you're getting Blitz charges, which is more attack speed, so you're really fast and responsive. You're getting just 40% more damage with a little bit of increased damage taken. Which obviously outweighs the damage you get. I'm still a little bit squishy on this build, but there are definitely some options to actually make it tankier. But I just haven't got around to that yet. I was trying to scale the damage. I really wanted something that just went into a boss room and just went and then just killed it, you know. So we were getting there, and it's froze. Gotta love that. Don't know what happened there. Sorry. I think it's just the VOD is a bit scuffed, but. So yeah, the single target's pretty respectable here. As you can see, I'm not actually wasting any of my my juice really. So I'm not popping berserk. I'm not putting my totems down. This is just kind of like your raw damage while you're buffed up with 50 rage and max blitz. I'm pretty sure that's like a T15, T16 boss there, but obviously wasn't that buffed because when you open a map with a conqueror in it. Look at that damage, you see. Pretty respectable, I'd say. That was the burst damage, though. So obviously the rest of it's more like sustained damage after that. And obviously I'm trying to juke things. I don't know why it keeps freezing. I don't know if I was dropping frames on that day, but that's just typical. But you can see it's pretty respectable damage, I'd say. And it's probably the most well-rounded character I've played thus far in the Metamorph League. A lot of my characters all had great clear. Like the Wild Striker, probably the best clear in the game, to be honest, almost. And obviously I played all the Storms, but I didn't do a build about that because I didn't play it that long, because I played it last league and I just got one shot right at the end. That's quite funny. So yeah, you're not super tanky on this build, so you know you're basically trying to outkill the enemy before they kill you. That's the key. And obviously because you got Leap Slam pretty much on. You know, it doesn't have a cooldown, does it? And you're so fast, attack speed, you can just leap slam around. The only thing I will mention is if you've ever gone into your network settings and changed your networking to lock predictive, which I know a lot of people have been doing recently because it makes your character feel more responsive. If you've never done it, try it. It feels really good, but the only problem is you get a lot of desync, and the more attack speed and the more move skills you're moving, the worse it gets. And I pretty much desync like every couple of minutes, but I think it outweighs the lag you feel on it. But that's another thing entirely. So here's a metamorph as well. I'll let the clip play, so you can see some damage. This is with just your totems. Pretty much this is just raw damage. That, to be honest. Obviously the metamorph wasn't buffed by map mods because it's a Citadel map, so obviously they get a little bit tankier than that and a lot more dangerous, but obviously it's just Metamorph League in a nutshell. Basically you either shit on it or it shits on you, so there's no in between. But as you can see, there's some gem swaps, and you know, overall I would say if you like doing a lot of damage and being respectably tanky, you're definitely going to die a few times. It's not hardcore vibe, I'll tell you that. Then this is the build for you. And I think I've chatted enough waffle, so what we're going to do is we're going to jump straight into the old game here, and I'll show you the POV in a minute when I'm explaining some stuff. Sorry about that. Scuffed the video, by the way. I'm sure I'll make them better in the future. So we're going to go through the Ascendancy, the tree, and then we'll go over gear and gems. How's that sound? So the tree. Obviously we're using Frost Blades, so you're gonna have to path from obviously your starting point to these two nodes here, because this is where we're going to be socketing our fight for the survival gems, or jewels should I say, and these basically just add penetration to your Frost Blades, And they also add projectile speed, which is why like when you hit something, it just goes shit, it just clears the screen because they're like almost instant. Because two of these, you got 50% increased speed on those, and the penetration from them alone is like 30% pen, just for two dual sockets. It's pretty nutty. That in combination with obviously like skills and gems and stuff, just means you're hitting true damage on Shaper. On like if you go on POB and you hit like the Shaper thing, you're pretty much hitting true damage. Obviously, I think reses can go minus, right, if you stack enough, but it felt like I already had enough. So as long as you get two of these in these two slots, you could put it up here if you pathed up here for whatever reason. This is not a bad little section of nodes, to be honest. So you could maybe path up here and take dodge. I was gonna stack armor and use Vile Molten Shell, but I never got around to that, so I'm still using Steel Skin. The only other thing is obviously just taking all the damage for the sword nodes. We're using jeweled foils, so we're fully going crit. So we're just taking, and we're obviously taking all the increased fizz damage because we're converting all that to cold. And another, I guess, must-have in the tree is these points here, because these are going to convert the rest of your points. Frostblade converts 60% base, and then this just finishes it off with a 40%, so you're fully converted. And like I said, you can do fizz reflect maps. You just have to do something with your leap slam. Either don't use it or put flame dash in on something, because you will kill yourself if you crit when you leap slam into a pack and hit multiple mobs. It one-shots you. It's kind of annoying, but it can be done if you don't mind walking around everywhere. You won't have fortify up, but you know, as long as you're killing stuff before they kill you, what's the problem, right? I actually took Unweaver stance because I found a lot of the time when I was getting hit, especially big chunky hits, I was getting stunned, and I couldn't move out the way, and I couldn't leap slam, and it was more like a frustration thing. So obviously when you get hit and you're almost dead, you're like, oh shit, trying to move around or maneuver, and then you just get hit again because you can't move properly, and it was just frustrating. So I took that, and it solved that problem. You could obviously go Combs Roots if you respect your gear a little bit, but yeah, I've just taken that. Honestly, you could probably take it out now. I mean, when it happens, it's usually like a boss, right, that hits you really hard and almost stuns you or locks you in place a little bit. But those extra 2 points, I was obviously going to hope to come down here and grab some more life and armor. Obviously, the armor helps for Vile Molten Shell, and obviously, you know, damage reduction in general. And because we're using a granite flask as well on our Lion's Roar, so we get quite a decent amount of armor, and we're not even really stacking it, as you can see. My boots aren't even the correct base. I have two correct bases, but obviously my boots are wrong. I obviously could get a lot of armor there, so the percent would be even better. You know, we got a Watcher's Eye, a juicy one. Now, like I should have said this at the start, I did sink a lot of currency into this build. I would say around 30 to 40x, probably close to 30. This alone was like 9x. I bought this after I sold a belt that I crafted for like 16x. If you haven't watched the Wild Strike video I did, I slammed a Stygian Vise with a Hunter's Orb and got like a pretty juicy belt, and I sold that for like 16x, and then I bought this. It was already rolled like pretty much max crit, and I got the Can't Be Blinded with Precision, which is always nice to have something else useful on the Watcher's Eye. We're using Precision, so you know, Can't Be Blinded, always nice, a little bit of quality of life, I guess. Then the rest of the cheese pretty generic, obviously taking up all the damage nodes. We're trying to grab life when we can. Obviously we're taking all the standard ones, Golem's Blood, we're taking Thick Skin because we're up here, we're obviously taking Herbalism and all that. Obviously the Sword Wheel, since we've got to come over and take this, we might as well take the Sword Wheel. Obviously we've got to take this as well, so we might as well grab the Crit Molly while we're there. We're obviously getting some LE damage with more penetration, more crit. I've got 1 point in here just to help with like mana and life sustain. I've got some damage leech on my boots, but that's obviously not the best enchant you can get. The life leech on this build is a little bit too slow, I'd say. You're probably best trying to stack some life on hit, but since our attack speed's so high, life on hit will be much better sustain for us. But we're not using claws, so we don't get it like there, and you'd have to find some maybe some nice rings. And yeah, that's pretty much the tree. You know, You can copy it, you can go in POB, you can edit it, see if you can make something better. Obviously there's some nice notes down here for early damage. You could obviously go up here and maybe go dodge instead of armor, and grab like the leech up here, and obviously the dual socket you could put up here. And obviously there's a big boy crit node up here. But yeah, and the only other thing we've got is we have this, but obviously I'll get to that in the gearing thing in a minute. Obviously that's from our amulet. But yeah, that's the tree. Our Ascendancy is Berserker. We're taking the Blitz line. This is going to give us massive attack speed, but it also reduces our crit. So we actually get 200% reduced crit. It's not less crit, but it's reduced. So you know, you're going to have to stack a little bit more crit than normal just to override that. It's really not that hard to override, and obviously the 40% more damage is just insane. Like when you have that up and when you don't, it feels like the game's in slow-mo when it goes off. We're taking an Aspect of the Carnage. It's 40% more damage. What more can you ask for? Good for leveling as well because it's just 40% more damage. So I took that one first. And then we're taking Rage. You can only gain Rage every 0.3 seconds, which is kind of a shame. So you kind of want to be a bit precious with your Berserk that you pop. That obviously consumes all of this and gives you a massive buff. That's what we use to kill bosses with. It's kind of our burst button. And in combination with like the Vile Totems and stuff. Or the War Chiefs, should I say. I mean, you could take this one as well. This could be really nice, and I might think about taking it if I keep playing this build for sustain. You get a little bit of extra attack speed, which is always nice, but you get that 50% increase in maximum total recovery, which basically means your life leech leeches back to you even quicker at 50%. Massive, right? So if you're doing like 1,000 life leech, then you're going to be doing 1,500, which, you know, the difference between going to full life, it could be like a second or two, you know. And it's huge leech as well, so look at that, 2% for mana and life, so it's pretty juicy. The only thing I would drop is probably this Aspect of the Carnage. It's obviously a huge damage loss, but it's also a tankiness gain, and then you obviously get sustain, so it's just quality of life, right? If you keep dying and you're getting annoyed, I would just take this instead of this and then just see how it feels. I haven't got to that point yet. I usually die to like metamorphs, and at this point I just accept that a metamorph is going to one-shot me if I don't kill it within like 3 seconds. So it's got to that point, right? So that's the tree. I will go over the skills, and then we'll go over the actual like gear and what I've got it on. So we're obviously using Frost Blades. The mandatory links I would say that I keep in at all times is elemental damage with attacks, multi-strike, and inspiration support actually at the moment. I wouldn't say this is mandatory, and a hypothermia, but there is a lot of choice in terms of what you can put in. Obviously inspiration, you can have close combat, but obviously this is down to what sockets you've got. If I had white sockets, I'd probably be swapping in close combat for my ancestral call for single target, and I'd probably just keep no, I'd probably put Ruthless in there maybe. I mean, there's so many options, right? You got close combat, you got Ruthless, you've got melee fizz support is really good because obviously we're converting all our fizz damage. You know, it's just a case of like what gear you've got, and it's like a balancing act really. So a more elemental damage you've got, probably inspiration might kick in a bit better. If you need the reduced mana cost as well, and you don't have a reduced mana cost chest, which I don't anymore, I did before. So obviously when we're at max attack speed, you can imagine we can literally delete our mana instantly if we're not hitting anything and leeching it back. So inspiration support's quite nice, and it adds a lot of damage. Look, we're at 186 just sat in town right now. If we just hit a few times now, we're at max stacks, right? 262k just from one gem. So that's pretty juicy, and it gives us crit. So I mean, honestly, it could also be best. Could be one of the best slots, to be honest. And the thing about close combat is it's only the melee hit it's really going to affect, because it's such a small radius because it's based on proximity, but it is up to 60% more damage. Obviously single target, that's huge. It's probably better than Ruthless. But obviously for me, I can't swap it in because my 2 greens are taken, so I swap out my Ancestral Awakened Call for Ruthless on single target. And if I'm feeling really memey for clear, I put Chain in instead of Hypothermia, and you just clear like 2 screens worth. So, but it's not really necessary. You won't feel the effects of that at all. A normal Ancestral Call will do you just as good as well. You can even go Tribal Fury on your amulet, but I've gone a different route with this, which I'll explain in a second. But yeah, for single target, this is what I'm normally looking like. I'm looking elemental damage, I'm looking hypothermia, multi-strike, ruthless, inspiration, and obviously frost blades. On single target, you probably could get away with swapping out hypothermia with this. It would be more damage, but this is you're gonna lose like extra chill and freeze effect, which is defense in a way, because it gives you freeze is going to stop the enemy from hitting you, so it's a really nice quality of life. And then we've got Berserk with an enhanced support. The enhanced just increases the increased attack damage, which I believe is it just gives you increased attack damage. So I was like, well, that's like a 16% increased attack damage for as you can see, I've got an empty gem slot here earlier. I could pop in something else. You could put Blood Rage in there with enhance, and that gives you an extra 4% increased attack speed from Blood Rage, but I had it in here because it's with increased duration, and it's just a little bit easier because I'm quite clumsy with like keeping it up. The uptime on it is, for me, it's useless. I usually go through like a whole map and be like, oh shit, I've got to put my Blood Rage on. And another thing to mention, because we're talking about Blood Rage, is you can go Vile Pact, right? And if you went this with Vile Pact, you would probably almost insta-life leech, right? But the problem with it is I hate using Blood Rage with Vile Pact, because you're just sat there in the middle of a map, maybe looting some splinters or something, and there's no mobs around, and you literally go to like 10% life, and I just don't like it. So I only use Blood Rage if I have like enough regen to counteract the effects of it, which I do, I think. Yeah. Obviously, in a less regen map, I do slowly die, but it's like not enough that it annoys me. But without like like a no regen map, completely not a less regen map, but like a no regen map, oh nah, savage. But yeah, it is for frenzies, and it's obviously just a huge increased attack speed, but it's mainly for the frenzies. So if you can get frenzies elsewhere, I would drop this. Honestly, there's probably better options out there. But yeah, obviously we've got a steel skin in there. We're using it ourselves. Because we're a god gamer and we got god reflexes. If you proc that at the right time, you can obviously stop yourself from getting one shot. It's like an extra 2,000 life. But obviously it's down to you pressing it and it going off. Sometimes I swear I press it and it doesn't go off, but it might be because it's slightly off cooldown, and you hit it. Obviously the better you are with like reacting to the actual stuff on the screen, you could probably put that in a cast on damage taken if you want. Then we've got our Leap Slam. Leap Slam, faster attacks, Fortify. Obviously, we leap into stuff, we get Fortify. That's 20% less damage taken from hits. Lovely defense for like almost for free. And then we were using Blood Magic. You can put melee stun support in here, or whatever. What's the name of it? This one. Endurance charge on melee stun, because when you Leap Slam in and it's doing quite a lot of damage, you will stun stuff and you will get melee. You will get endurance charges. The thing I didn't like is that I don't have enough mana, since I'm reserving most of my mana. When I was leap slamming around with such high attack speed, I was actually spending all my mana, and I was getting all my guy was just kept saying I was out of mana, and I was just like, okay, we just need to put Blood Magic back in there. But if you want endurance charges for extra tankiness, put that in. Just do note you probably won't get this on bosses, because you can't really stun a boss with leap slam because you won't do enough damage. So it's only good for like mapping. So if you're having trouble mapping and you need a little bit more tankiness, put that on. So Blood Magic, but just make sure you don't spend all your mana. Then we've got Ancestral Warchief with Culling Strike and an Ice Golem. Obviously the Culling Strike on our Ice Golem and our Warchief just makes it so when they're below 10% life, they die instantly. Great for a bossing. Getting up 10%, they're dead. I put it on my Ice Golem as well, because normally he's more alive. He's more out than the War Chiefs, right? Because if you forget to place them down, or you're running around, to dodge stuff, At least the golem is like range and stuff, and all it takes for it doesn't take like a certain amount of damage for it to proc the cult. It just happens at 10% life. So even if your ice golem hits him, then he dies. And we're obviously using ice golem for increased accuracy and crit because we want to max our accuracy. Our accuracy at the moment is 100, which is nice. You want to make sure you at least get it to 100 against normal mobs. We're doing that in combination with having some on our gear, and we got a chunk on our precision. We leveled this up a little bit more than you probably normally would. You could probably get away with a little bit less. And I don't know if I took any on the tree, because I did have a problem at one point where I didn't have enough accuracy and I took some on the tree, but I think I've taken it out now because obviously I've got it elsewhere. I mean, you get accuracy from this. It's quite nice accuracy bits in there. You can always take this if you really need the accuracy, and obviously this gives accuracy as well. This is global accuracy, and you need the dex in it anyway, so this is a nice note to take. Where were we? And then our auras, we're using hatred, massive damage increase, and obviously we got our Watcher's Eye. I mean, this gem alone, in combination with everything it's working with, ridiculous amounts of damage. Then we're obviously using Herald of Ice because we're shattering stuff, so we're obviously getting extra cleave and damage, and it basically works like the exploded chest. If you don't have one, it's going to clear up, and you can put MTX on, and it looks good. So, well, you know, a win-win there. Precision, obviously increased crit, and it's giving us accuracy. Level this up as high as you need it to go. Don't level it up just for the crit, only level it up for the accuracy you need. The crit you get per level is not really worth it. Obviously, if I could use this at level 1 and save myself like another 50 mana, I would, but I need the accuracy. And then we're using Enlighten just so it costs a little bit less, because without it we're at 36, which is a bit uncomfortable. And with it, obviously if you get a level 4, you'd probably be at like, what, 100 mana maybe or something. So those are the gem slots. Now let's talk about the gear. Now, like I said, I did sink a bit of currency into this build, so I have made 2 juicy weapons, but this build will work fine on like a 300 DPS sword. I theory crafted it first with kind of crappy gear, because that's probably the best way to theory craft stuff, right? And I was using like 300 DPS swords in the path of building, and I had about the same amount of damage, right? Well, obviously I've got more damage now with everything up, but so this, I got super lucky. I got a T1 attack speed, T1 fizz, and I got crit multi on it. So everything on there is useful. And then obviously I multi-modded increased fizz damage because we're scaling fizz. So like the physical DPS of the sword is the most important part. And obviously then after that it's either crit or attack speed. I would value attack speed because you can get your crit high enough even with just 5.5 on a dual foil. But obviously if that crit multi was increased crit chance, and then we could get the base crit of the sword up to like 6 or 7, that would be the perfect sword. Obviously I put Ellie Pen on it because I was heavily going for Ellie Pen because I wanted that single target, but it turns out when I show you my other sword that there is a better option, and that is why also I'm using a Redeemer base on a dual foil. It's eye level 83, so if you want to craft them yourself. And I was using a Redeemer base because it has this attacks with weapons, penetrates, cold resistance, and it can go up to 15%. So obviously you can save yourself an X if you can get that on there. But obviously a lot of the prefixes, 2 of the prefixes are always going to be taken by flat fizz and increased fizz. And if you get like a dictators as well, which obviously you can then in theory get up to 500 DPS on a sword, which is way better. You're going to be using all 3 of your prefixes up, so you're not going to be able to get Ellie Pen on there. So your next best option after that is well, there is no next best option really. Or your prefixes are pretty much taken. That's no problem with fizz, right? You have to take up all your prefixes trying to get high fizz swords. So with this one, I just, you know, if you get a flare in with any like attack speed or crit on it, you can multi-mod around that. This one that I crafted yesterday, slightly not as, doesn't look as what's the word? It doesn't look as juicy as the other one because it's not T1 rolls, but the fizz is extra cold actually outperforms my other sword. So if I had 2 of these in my hand right now, 2 of these ones, this sword, if I swapped one of them out for this sword, it actually gives me 5% more damage. Now that could be a combination of it having higher base crit, because obviously this has got crit quality on it, but the actual fizz DPS of this sword is only 369 AA, and this one's 412. So this fizz as extra cold is actually giving us a ton of damage, and that was another reason why I picked up the Redeemer base. I was like, if I get that with like like a T1 flaring, then it'll be a juicy sword. So you don't need full Ellie pen. I was obviously trying to just mirror this basically. I was trying to craft another one of these, but with crit chance, so crit multi. But it turns out fizz extra cold, pretty juicy rolls. So if you get a T1 of those and with something else, then multi-mod around it, I would say. If you're aiming for GG swords, obviously you want something like 400 DPS. If you can get like a 500 DPS sword, I mean, you'll be one-shotting everything. So yeah, those are the weapons. I don't have any alternatives in terms of like cheap uniques, since I didn't really go through that route, but I guess something like this will be alright. Super cheap at the start, and just put red sockets on it for like the increased global fizz. And I'm sure there's some cold swords out there. I mean, this is kind of alright. Crit multi or accuracy, Crit multi with no frenzy, so if you're not using blood rage, it's quite a thick sword to use. But yeah, like I said, I was chucking a fair bit of currency into this build, so you've been warned. My helmet, just a fossil crafted cold minus res. It's got essence straight damage on it. I enchanted this myself. I was trying to get a Frost Blades damage one, but it was actually quite expensive at the time. When I was actually crafting this helmet, I didn't have enough currency, so I just went with whatever I could get. There are better lab enchants you can get. I think there's a Berserker Duration one, which is pretty juicy. Assassin's Mark Effectiveness is always juicy. I can't remember if there's any others. There's a Blood Rage one, I believe. Like increased attack speed while you're affected by Blood Rage would also be very good. So there's a fair few you can use in this build. So don't think you just have to get like the generic damage increase one. Honestly, I haven't POB'd it, but I don't even know if that would be the best of the slot. I mean, at least for burst anyway. It sounds like the Berserker one would be better. And obviously Assassin's Mark's quite nice because it's increased damage. So fossil crafted this with a Frigid and Pristine. Landed on this. Rolled with that. Doesn't need to be any more, any less than that, to be honest. Our chest. This is where obviously some of that currency was chucked into. I thought I haven't used an Awaken or Royal Ball League. Let's have some fun. So I was like, let's make an explodey chest with crit. So I already had a chest with crit on it that I fossil crafted with serrated and pristines, and it took about 10 or so resonators, so it wasn't too cheap. The base alone, the Elder base of this, which is like it's not even like the best in slot base, I would say, but you obviously grab whatever you can at the time. I bought it 6 linked for 4x, which is not bad. Obviously then got the crit on it, a T1 with some other stats. I had the minus mana res on it as well. Cost of skills, which is really nice. It pretty much made my Frost Blades, it was pretty much free. With certain gem links, obviously the higher multiplier gem links you put in there, obviously, but at one point it cost like 2 mana. So at that point you can reserve more mana, but obviously gem swapping it went up a bit. But yeah, I basically bought an exploded chest for 3.5x or something, and I Awaken or Orbed it with this one. So obviously kept the crit and the explodey, and then rerolled all the others, and it banged into this. I slammed the strength on. I think I slammed it again. Slammed strength on it, and it still had space for life. So life plus those 2 mods alone is great. Increased armor and evasion for an armor and evasion base. There's nothing not useful on that chest like melee fizz reflect. So it's pretty good. And obviously, as you can see in the clips, the explosion makes any build good at clearing basically. And I will be using this in my next build most likely, which is going to be a cast on crit. So obviously the attacks, you use Cyclone as like your procer, so the attacks plus crit is nice for that. But yeah, obviously we just want to stack as much crit as we want. We can get to 100 crit, we are we are flying, right? So rings. This is just some random ring I had lying around, and I just haven't been asked to change it. It just filled out what I needed at the time, and I haven't really looked at it since. But obviously, you can get a better ring than that. Opal ring with flat fizz on it. A steel ring with double flat fizz. Obviously, you probably want some accuracy, and obviously life and resist. Don't forget your life and resist. My other ring's the same ring from other builds. It's an assassin mark. It's got a nice chunk of accuracy on it. It's got fire damage to attacks. If you want to use a cinder swallow, then you need a little bit of fire damage to attacks, so you could do that. You could swap that out instead of a sulfur flask. Then my amulet, we needed int, so I got an int base. It's got some res on it, big life, big crit multi, and I got fire damage to attacks because I was planning on using a cinder swallow, so I was like, I want fire on attacks with something. You can obviously just get it on a jewel. It's really not that, sought after. But and then add an open prefix for elemental damage with attacks, which is better than like added cold or added fizz. Or at least tooltip anyway was telling me that, so I went with that. I've put Whispers of Doom on it, which is applying an additional curse. And the reason for that is we're using Assassin's Mark and Ellie Weakness on a Tomb Fist. Now these Tomb Fists were only 3x. If you get a 1-socket Tomb Fist, you can get some nice curse on hit ones for quite cheap. 3x for these is a steal, I would say. And obviously you're getting the Intimidate because we've got a Murderous Eye in there. So the damage these add and the combination of these two curses is just massive, right? Obviously, if something's hexproof, you're losing a lot of damage, and a lot of metamorphs are hexproof, and some bosses are. And obviously you can get it as a map mod. You will feel the damage loss, unfortunately. But the damage when it's all working, crazy. So yeah, we just got 1-socket Tomb Fist because two-socket Tomb Fists are just... I don't think they're even worth it. Like an extra socket. You get maim, but maim only is just a slow, right? So, I don't know. For me, a 1-socket one. You could even go those gloves with the Assassin's Mark on hit. Cursed, corrupted, shall I say, with elemental weakness on hit. And then you've got both your curses on one slot. But then you don't get Tomb Fist, so, you can get Intimidate elsewhere. But that's an option as well. Then you've got both your ring slots, and you could maybe go Mark of the Elder. I haven't put it in this build because I need obviously the requirements from other ring, but you could go this. This is like 100%. You can get almost 100% increase attack damage if you're a ring shaper. Massive damage increase for me, even for me right now. 194, 235. So I'm just too squishy with that on. But I might play with it later or something, just to see how it feels. There's a certain point where you're literally one-shot everything, so it doesn't matter how not tanky you are. Then what we got? We got our Stygian Vise. Just hit it with some, Pristine and Frigid. Obviously just looking for that cold damage roll if we got a damage with attacks, and also the elemental roll if you use prismatics as well, if you want to go big dick. I landed on like a T1 with a resist, a damage. Flasks gained is also a nice quality of life, I guess. And I needed the resist, so I needed a spare suffix. You could slam it, right? You could do a lot with that, but you can obviously get damage to attacks, elemental damage to attacks on there as well. There's a lot you can do with the belt. Obviously, always go for a Stygian Vise because you're going to get the socket, and then in the socket we've just got some generic flat damage to attacks with T2 life. Obviously, you want at least like a T3 life on all your jewels just to get that extra life. As you can see, we're in at 5,200 at the moment. I mean, we could easily increase that without losing too much damage, but I've been happy playing with what I've got recently, so I haven't felt the need to make my guy extremely tanky. There are obviously situations like metamorphs and stuff where you're just like, for fuck's sake, I wish I could just stand there and just beat him up. But metamorphs are a bad example because they're just so overtuned sometimes. It's not even it's a bit ridiculous. And then finally, our boots are just some damaged life does leech if you've killed recently. I had these lying around, they've got int on them, I needed the int at the time. I can obviously get rid of them now. You can even get the boots that apply an additional curse. So that is cheaper than getting this on your amulet because this is 2 goldens and a black, which is pretty expensive. When I made them, goldens were 90c each. So it's like over it. It's almost like a 2x enchant. And do I have them still? There they are. No. I did find a pair, but I don't think I've put them in my Pokemon tab. So look how organised my tabs are. Yeah, I don't know where they are. They might be on my other characters. So yeah, you can get boots with, and they have like early damage and some all res, so they're all right. They only got 15 move speed on them though, but you don't really need move speed with this build because you're leap slamming around. I've even dropped the move speed flask, and that gets me onto the flasks. Obviously, a blade removal, health pot, always OP. This isn't even like a good one. You want like instant recovery really, one that you can just spam if you like get almost one shot. Diamond flask, gotta have diamond flask if it's a crit build, pretty much. Obviously freeze removal on that. Then we've got curse removal on a sulfur flask. This is the one you can swap out for anything you want really. If you want to be more tanky, you could put is it like the fizz damage reduction one in there. I think it's a basalt or something. I can't remember the name of it. If you want to go more damage, you could put a taste of hate in there. Onslaught's better than this actually at the moment on my POB, so obviously a Cinder Swallow or just any generic Onslaught Silver Flask. I will probably swap this out later, but I just put this on for now and I haven't bothered to change it. This is our biggest damage flask we can get. It's more melee fizz damage, obviously it's all getting converted, so, and it gives us armor. The knockback is extremely annoying and I wish I could drop it, and I might eventually, because with an Azuri's Promise and a Taste of Hate, I mean this is only like 5% more damage than a Taste of Hate, I believe, 5 or 6. So the damage you lose, it's basically like this. Imagine you're hitting the mob right, and then they skirt off because you're knocking them back and you have such high attack speed. Eventually, at some point, right, they're going to be out of range, so you stop hitting. So then you actually got downtime on your damage. So in theory, if they're not knocked back and you can stand there and fully DPS them without any interruptions, Taste of Hate could actually work out better. And also Taste of Hate gives you less cold damage taken, 20%, which is quite a decent amount. So honestly, this might get swapped out, but in terms of like just raw DPS, this is better. If you can get them up against a wall so they're not getting knocked back, the best flask DPS in the game for this build. Other than maybe a Bottled Faith, but that's like a 14x flask, and I'm not spending that kind of money on a flask. And then Azuri's Promise, obviously, you know, we're scaling fizz, we're scaling elemental damage, so we get like huge benefit from this. Obviously, it's a nice little extra leech, and it gives us Chaos Res, which is always nice. Since we don't have any Chaos Res on this build, I would probably recommend putting some Chaos Res on like your gloves and helmet or something, because like things like Metamorphs do a lot of chaos damage. And that is everything, I believe. So yeah, as you can see, like when I hit my hatred, really 60k damage it just added to my tooltip, so pretty ridiculous. Precision adds like 20%, adds like 15. So you know, it's a pretty fun build, I'd say. You do not need to spend this much money. You could definitely get by on a few X. Even honestly, if you wanted to go full budget build, you probably could get this to work, since the gems are not that expensive at all. I did get one with Corrupted Blood on it that was slightly more expensive just for quality of life. Yeah, this build could also work on other Ascendancies. I was thinking about playing a Slayer with it and having Overleech, because I actually wanted to be tanky for once, but then I was thinking about the 40% more attack speed on my Leap Slam, and I just like, I can't resist. Basically, I couldn't resist. And yeah. So overview, or TLDR, I guess. This is probably the most well-rounded build I've played. It's tanky enough. It's tanky enough, but you know, there's still some things that it will get smashed by. Obviously, Metamorphs, they pretty much smash anything anyway, but you will get smashed by a Metamorph if you don't kill it quick enough. Some bosses, obviously, you're going to get one shot, but some mechanics are just one shots anyway. The damage and the clear are all T16 and above. They could probably go up to like T20 if that was a thing. And even without the explodey chest, you can definitely even add chain into the build and just get mad clear. You know, the perfect situation for this build is obviously a boss with no phasing, and that's just got, is either in one room, the arena, straight away, it's there, or it's in the middle of the map. You will clear the map, press Berserk, and just smack the boss down. And it's as simple as that, really. And that's what I was looking for with this build. I wanted something that could map and kill the bosses. I wasn't too concerned about single target and, like, you know, doing Elder and Shaper and that. But it actually turns out it's got a lot of freaking damage, and even without all the buffs up, as long as you got like your blitz up, which go up pretty much instantly anyway, so if they drop off, it's not a big issue. And if it's a sustained fight, eventually you're going to build up some rage, and then, you know, once you have enough rage, hit Berserk, and then you absolutely zerg them down and cull them. You know, it's this build, it can definitely do everything and everything well. So if you're looking for a fun, you know, fun new build to play, I do recommend this. If you've got a lot of currency, then you will get a lot of like extra damage from min-maxing, so there's that. And before I leave you, I'm just going to show you the path of building, I guess. I basically snapshot it and saved it out from what you've just seen anyway. But in my configuration at the moment, I've got it in like a burst setup situation, so you can obviously untick some boxes. It's maybe a little bit more too flattering. But we're about 3.8, almost 3.9 total DPS on a Shaper Guardian. And that's just them intimidating and chilled, because obviously I'm using hypothermia in the build, so obviously if you don't have hypothermia, then the chilled's not going to do anything. We've crit recently. Yes, we have. We're always critting. We have fortifiers not adding damage. We're at max blitz. We're at max rage and berserks on, but obviously berserk only lasts like 10 seconds. So as you can see, the damage berserk adds is like insane. If we go back to you can see it adds 20% more damage, 20% more attack speed, more move speed, less damage taken. Whew, gotta get hot just looking at it. Yeah, and this is with obviously our war chiefs down. So this is quite an inflated number, right? But it's a scenario you'll get to in maps, right? That's what I've gone for. If you're obviously fighting, say, Shaper, and there's obviously a lot of downtime, you're probably going to be at like 10 rage. You're probably yeah, you'd have max blitz. Inspiration charges, obviously you'll have those, and then you probably just wouldn't have berserk, right? You can always put down one war chief, but maybe not Val, just normal war chief. And we're about 2 mil. I mean, that's respectable. That's double my wild striker, and we got much more damage penetration than that. So, and obviously, like I said, you can get rid of this. You know, you don't have to have this. You can use Combs Roots or something, and then, you know, go over here, spec up here. You could even go up here, grab this node wheel. I don't know what's more efficient. I'm sure someone out there will find a more efficient route for this tree. But that is it for the build, unless I am forgetting anything. Please remember now, Dan, before you press stop record, otherwise this is going to be embarrassing. I mean, other than that, look, you know, you got to see my defenses, look. You know, that tooltip DPS, look. Oh, 60 chaos sale, look. So yeah, 70 crit on my other sword because it has crit on it, right? So you can see it adds like 10 base crits, so it's pretty respectable. But that's going to do it for me. I'm going to go and make 60C for talking for 43 minutes again. And, you know, leave any comments or anything below. And peace out, brothers. Stay frosty.